Thank you all so much for coming out, and thank you to everyone who's already been a part of this community before. Just a little context on the JC Tech Meetup, because over the course of the last few weeks, there seems to have been some confusion along the way of what we do. We are not a cannabis company, and we never plan to be. We are a tech meetup, and we meet monthly covering different topics in tech that are very interesting to us, and that we think people are interested in and want to get involved in. So me and my partner Joe will bring people that are smarter than us to talk about the future of different topics and what they're working on in that industry. So if you're interested in technology, innovation, entrepreneurship, join the JC Tech Meetup, and we'd love to have you. Starting in 2019, me and Joe kind of had this plan to have 2 to 3 bigger meetups in the year, kind of take it to the next level and really grow our community. And there's a few reasons why we wanted to have Green Rush as our first one. The first being that we're cannabis enthusiasts over at the JC Tech Meetup, so we really support the cause. We wanted to really put a spotlight on all of that. So everyone give a round of applause for everyone who's here that is making shit happen in the industry. There's a lot happening in New Jersey. Everyone knows Jersey City is one of the front runners in the legalization of marijuana, and we're really, really excited about it. We've come a long way from the days when I was hiding out in my parents' garage doing market research, and we're really excited to bring in some experts to come out and really talk about what is happening in the industry, what's going on in New Jersey, and what the future looks like. I know I'm personally interested in learning about this topic. I know there's a lot of confusion for people who think that it's around the corner, that the vote keeps getting pushed. So what we really want to do is just bring in awesome speakers. So everyone give it up for our speakers coming from all different walks of life. They're awesome. Now we're going to do a really quick thing for 5 minutes where anyone who has either an event or a company they want to promote, you got 30 seconds tops, 2 to 4 sentences to say what you do and what you want people to be involved with. For example, my brother David right here might say, yo, I make awesome videos, I direct them, I make music, I'm a sick photographer and a graphic designer. You guys should talk if you want to work together. That's an example of what you can say, and the amount of time you should say it. So, anyone who wants to shout themselves out, raise their hand. Chris, kick it off with you, buddy.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chris. I work with cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And my main goal is to just properly educate people. So if you're ever interested in any investment into cryptocurrency, I can properly inform you. And I'd be glad to. It's one of my pure passions.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us. We're from CWC Expo. I'm here with Matt Daly, our Director of Operations. We have a show coming up at the Javits. It's sold out for exhibitors, but we have a special Green Rush promo code for everybody. Write this down to attend and get 10% off your tickets on the Super Saver with Conference and Expo. And we are anchoring that week, May 29th through June 1st. We're starting it on May 28th, Cannabiz Week in New York. You cannot miss it. We have fun events, networking, and parties, and all kinds of things. You're going to learn a lot at our expo and at our conference. Ready for the promo code? GRUSH19. GRUSH19. Jacob Javits, May 29th to June 1. Make sure you sign up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey everybody, I just want to give yourselves and those that threw this event a round of applause. So real quick, if you could just give yourselves a round of applause where you want to say thank you. So I'd like to do this thing called Hey Guys Make What, not to single anybody out, but just to make sure that everybody's on their toes. So let's give it a try. Hey guys! Oh, come on, that was a little bit weak. Hey guys! Awesome. So my name is Anthony Rose. I'm a finance coach with Fresh Start Advancement, and I your deals, whether you're looking for a business loan or you're just looking to purchase a home. My goal is to fix your credit, get you out of debt, and I do this by showing you that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I'll be around a little bit. I have some free gifts, and again, I just want to say thank you for giving me the platform. And if you have a moment, look fresh. freshstartadvancement.com. One more time, freshstartadvancement.com. Thank you guys.
What's up, everyone? My name is JC. I am the owner of the Grassroots Collaboration Group. It is a startup incubator entirely focused on cannabis. I am currently offering an hour to 2 hour free consultation from now through mid-May. So if any of you are looking to start a company, if you have any ideas, bounce ideas off somebody, reach out to me. I'll get back really well. All right?
All right, everyone else?
Hi. Talking about coming from a long way from garages, we've also come a long way from the days of apples and tin cans. So that's why I've launched luxurylipstick.com for a specialty boutique with custom hand-blown glass, fakes, and other accessories. We're running a 420 promotion right now. Please go to 420 sale, luxurylipstick.com. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate it. My name is Anthony Gilbert. I'm the technical recruiter for Rent the Runway. Most of you in the room should know the actual platform and the technology. I have recruitment for both Jersey and Manhattan's locations. So if you are interested in making a change into an entrepreneurship culture, cultivated locally, and we were just valuated at $1 billion 2 weeks ago. So anyone wants to take a look?
Hey guys, my name is Ross. I'm the founder of digital marketing agency. We focus on SEO. If you have any question, just ask me. I'm around here. Thank you.
Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Postos. I work for Leaflick. It's a company right out of New York City. We're the largest B2B wholesale marketplace for compliant cannabis products. So if you have products you'd like to sell at our marketplace, please speak with me, or if you're a dispensary you want to learn more about how to shop on our product. Or if you're looking for a job, we're scaling our engineering team, our sales team, as well as other areas of the products. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for 2 more.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris Clankin. I just launched a vertically integrated cannabis organization in the state of Michigan. I'm in the city of New York to raise some capital, and we're starting with a 40,000 square foot facility in the city of Flint, and we're going after the nutrition facts of cannabis to really give people an idea of what the effectiveness of the product that they consume. That's it.
Thanks, Bob. We get you last. Give me the last one, please.
Hey, sorry about that. Hey, how we doing, everyone? My name is Pat. I'm the COO of New Jersey Grow Solutions. We're looking to be a micro cultivation facility out of Ewing, New Jersey. So if you have any questions, feel free to find me. We're looking for dispensaries, anyone looking to start one, or just to kind of start that collaboration network. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. And one last one.
Ladies and gentlemen, how's everyone doing tonight? Yeah?
Now, better than that. Come on.
So there are 2 companies I want to give a shout out to. First and foremost, UCB Expo. They brought me into the industry. Great company to work for, and it's a great show. I mean that sincerely. So give it up for Christina, Uzi, and Matt. Give them a round of applause. And secondly, the Java Show, Season 4, and I invite you. Check us out. Instagram, website, Google, you'll find us. We're pretty good. Give us a look-see. Jonathan, where are you? Not here. Okay, that's it.
All right. I really want to thank you guys for coming here. This is the biggest JC Tech Meetup we've ever had. So I'm just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for coming and making it possible. Just one last round of applause for everyone that came out here. Before you go, Zeppelin closes at 10 on the dot. So if you want to keep the fun going and you want to keep networking, Pet Shop is around the corner. I always go there after the meetup. So keep it alive at Pet Shop. Be out here at 10, respect the event. And now, a few words from our kick-ass sponsors, starting with Smooth Roots, who is being a vendor over there, very busy, but they're awesome, and you should go to their table after this and talk to them. Do you guys want to say any more words? Or? Yeah, you said a few words. Thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate you. Lit up. Everyone get over Brian.
We all know cannabis and technology, but who loves a good story? Can I get a show of hands who loves a good story? I've been working in the retail space in IT for about 6 years, and about 2 years ago I got really interested in cannabis. Same rules, but very different companies are coming around. And today I'm actually launching my first podcast about cannabis technology. It's about the entrepreneurs who are creating tech companies, and it's also about the businesses that rely on those tech companies to really grow and grow the space. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on all the social medias, we're also on every podcast app that's out there. Look us up without big ideas in cannabis technology innovation. Thanks.
Everyone for Brian. Follow it up. It's going to be awesome. I'm personally talking around about it and super excited about what's coming with that. If someone from Distant Job here want to say a few words, they are also our vendors, so understandable if they're busy at their booth. They're a recruiting agency, so make sure you talk to them if you're looking for a career change and you want to expand your horizons. I'll do the pitch for that. Hands aloft! I know you guys are here somewhere. There we go. Everyone give it up for Michael!
Hey guys, so I'm Michael Ansel from Ansel Primavera. We're going to have someone here on one of the panels, Josh Bachner, talking more about cannabis specifically. We got into this space through our representation of High Times a few years ago, so we made a lot of good connections in the industry. But looking around here today, I can tell we're trying a lot of small businesses, startups, freelancers. So I want to talk about a service we're trying to offer geared towards that community. It's basically a monthly subscription plan where you can allow a definitive budget for a suite of services. It's something that most law firms don't offer, and it's really geared towards helping you form a company, helping you organize in a way that's going to allow you to grow in a responsible and legal manner. So I'll be around. Talk to me if you have any questions about that or hit up any of the Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to come over here to Joseph, who is recording, so I'll bring the mic to him.
I'll actually get it. Hey everyone, Joseph Canna, JLC Social Marketing. We do social marketing, training, and events. We did all of the marketing that brought all of you wonderful people together. And in the cannabis industry, that is not easy. If you need any tips or any advice and you want to figure out how we pulled off selling almost 250 tickets to a cannabis event, let us know. Just come up to me afterwards. I'll be perfectly fine with explaining all the tea. All right, thanks. JLCSocialMarketing.com.
Thanks, Joe. And lastly, thank you, Zeppelin and Mike and Yoshi and the whole team. You guys are awesome, and we really appreciate you hosting this. This wouldn't be possible without you. You guys rock. Thank you. Everyone, make sure to tip your bartenders. Oh, I'd like to now pass the mic to someone very special we have kicking off the night. We have Ralston from the ACLU who's going to kick off this evening with a little intro into the cannabis world and what the state of affairs is. So thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Who here knows what the ACLU is? It's a show of hands. Generally, yeah, right? Well, let me just explain. So I'm the executive director of the ACLU of New Jersey. The ACLU is a nationwide litigation and public policy organization focused on your constitutional and civil rights. Essentially, we are in the courts every single day fighting back against the Trump administration or any other policies that may infringe upon your civil rights. We are in the legislature every day talking to people in Trenton or in DC about how we can work together to promote constitutional rights in law or fight back against policies that may infringe on people's constitutional rights as well. But we we also do a lot of public education work where we're in community spaces, talking to people about what their rights actually are, and the fact that they don't exist in the vacuum. It's all context dependent, right? It all depends on where you are, and what situation you find yourself in. And we do a lot of community organizing where we're trying to build power in communities that are directly impacted by unjust criminal justice systems or unjust immigration policy, to make sure that the people that are directly impacted by the laws that hurt us are the ones that are advocating for themselves. So we do all of that work in all 50 states, including New Jersey, where we are based in Newark, and we have a staff of about 22 or so, but we punch far above our weight. We are filing lawsuits every single day and pushing on our legislative folks as well. So people might be wondering, what does the ACLU have to do with cannabis? And the answer to that question is that the ACLU has been advocating for legalizing cannabis for a very long time, for nearly all of our existence for over 100 years. The ACLU of New Jersey, founded 60 years ago, has had a principle of legalizing or at least decriminalizing drugs for a very long time. But in the cannabis fight in earnest, for the past 5 years, we've been pushing for legalization through the legislature in New Jersey. We formed this coalition called New Jersey United for Marijuana Reform. We sit on the steering committee of this coalition. But for us, cannabis is not just a new industry, not just a new legal, innovative issue area. It's not just a new product. It's a social justice issue. For us, it's about criminal justice, racial justice, social justice, and economic justice. And I say that because the policies of prohibition that have plagued our society for years on end, including the war on drugs, have failed us. They have been the primary cause of mass incarceration. They have been the primary cause of the racial disparities that we have in our criminal justice system. They're the primary cause of why our racial disparities in our prisons in New Jersey are the worst out of any other state in this country. You're 12 times more likely to be incarcerated in New Jersey if you're black than if you're white. 12 times. You're 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession, simple cannabis possession, if you're black than if you're white. There are some communities across the state where you're 31 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis possession if you're black than if you're white. We just think that's not right. We're spending over $140 million a year on arresting and prosecuting and adjudicating marijuana arrests and cannabis arrests. That's over the course of the past decade, that's over $1 billion. We are arresting record numbers for simple cannabis possessions. We are one of the highest states in terms of frequency of arrests. We did this study that we released in 2017 that tracked data from 2000 to 2014, where we saw that every single year during that time frame, cannabis arrests rose in New Jersey. And it continued to climb after 2014. The latest data we have from 2017 says that we're making over 32,000 arrests every single year for cannabis possession in New Jersey. That means 600 people are being arrested every week. That's an arrest something like every 20 minutes, right? And this is for possessing something that most people in this country think should be legalized, that the past several presidents have, maybe not Trump, but the past several presidents before Trump have admitted to doing. And it's something that we are able to talk about above ground, right? Like, we're able to have these conversations about entrepreneurship, about supply and demand, about monopolization of industry. These relatively sophisticated conversations that we're able to have, but yet we know that today over 100 people were arrested for cannabis possession in the state. Probably in the city that we're in, probably not too far away from here. And you know, when Governor Murphy was campaigning, he was campaigning on the principle of cannabis legalization from a racial and social justice perspective. There weren't too many specifics in his campaign, but we provided society at large, some of those specifics. We think that cannabis possession, or cannabis legalization, if done right, should include 4 things. The first is automatic expungement of people's records, right? People that have cannabis possession records or even distribution records should not be burdened with the collateral consequences of those records for the rest of their lives. And if you guys are familiar with the criminal justice system, you know that this means educational opportunities that they're missing out on, job opportunities, immigration consequences, familial consequences. People have lost their children as a result of cannabis-related crimes. They may lose their public housing, things like that. We want to make sure that people aren't targeted or have a target on their backs because of their cannabis records. The second thing is industry diversity. We need to make sure that the industry that's created in New Jersey actually looks like New Jersey, right? We need to make sure that people without millions of dollars that may not be affiliated with some fancy corporation have access to licensure, and that opportunities are being given to people in those directly impacted communities, in those black and brown communities across the state. We want to make sure also, the third thing is that tax revenue is going to the right place. We're talking about an industry that may generate hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue annually, and we better be clear about what it is that money is going to be doing. For the ACLU, we think that money should be going back to the communities that have been hardest hit by the war on drugs. Those communities that have been devastated, and it should be going to those areas where we know, those tried and true areas where we know will actually influence and impact people's lives, right? Those social services, drug treatment and counseling, education, job training, re-entry, those things that we know will actually help people uplift their own lives. And the last thing that we've been advocating for is home grow. People should be able to grow their own cannabis for personal use if we are legalizing. And that's just a matter of fairness, right? We want to make sure that if you can buy a plant, you should be able to grow that plant, right? So these 4 things have been our sort of guiding compass, right, for marijuana legalization, or cannabis legalization in New Jersey. Now, folks might know, those of you that are from Jersey might know that a couple of weeks ago, there was a vote that was pulled on legalization from the Senate, right? That shouldn't be cause for alarm, although I know there was a lot of controversy around that. The reason it shouldn't be cause for alarm is because this happens all the time. The Senate president often decides not to vote on a bill if they don't have the votes to pass the bill, because not voting on something is better than having it defeated, right? So there is still opportunity, plenty of opportunity. We're hoping to get this through the finish line in May. And what that means is that we got to put the pressure on, right? So let me talk a little bit about the bill, and then we'll talk a little bit about the politics. So the bill is S2703. It's a bill that does many of the things that I mentioned. First and foremost, I'll rip it off like a Band-Aid. There is no home grow in the bill. There is no home grow in the bill. We knew early on that home grow wasn't going to be a part of the conversation, but we still pushed for it as the ACLU, and we continue to push for it until today. But for reasons related to industry concerns and reasons related to enforcement concerns, there is not home grow in the bill. Secondly, the tax revenue structure isn't the best, but it's okay. So right now, the taxes that are collected at the state level under the bill will go towards things like hiring drug recognition experts in law enforcement agencies across the state to make sure that we have a way of telling who's intoxicated and who's not when they're driving. We are going to be investing in job training and re-entry. But the vast majority of the money that's collected at the state level will be going towards a fund to help both expungements, which is good, and also this regulatory body operate. So this regulatory body that's being created, it's a 5-person body that the governor and the legislature will be able to appoint. The industry diversity provisions in the bill are pretty good. So what they're doing is creating something called impact zones. Impact zones are communities that are over 120,000 people, or those communities that have a high rate of arrest of cannabis-related crimes, or have a high unemployment rate, and have a high crime index. And because of what we know about the criminal justice system and about socioeconomic status and about arrest rates generally, we know that those metrics are inextricably intertwined with race. And we are confident that the provisions in this bill, which require that 25% of licenses go to people from impact zones, we're confident that there's going to be a valiant effort to make sure that there is industry diversity, because the licensure is also up to this regulatory body that I mentioned that has to have at least one, but not just one, at least one social justice advocate in the mix. The last thing that I think is pretty good is expungements. All right, we were advocating for what we call automatic expungements, which is basically the state has the burden of figuring out who's eligible for expungement, all right, and then summarily expunging the records. However, right now, the process that currently exists is incredibly burdensome. If I wanted to get a record expunged, I would have to file paperwork with every single agency that may have been involved in my arrest and adjudication. That includes the municipal police that may have arrested me, the municipal prosecutor that may have prosecuted me, the municipal court that may have adjudicated my case, then the county prosecutor, then the state police, the state court system, and the state attorney general's office. All of this costs money, all of this is time consuming, and even the state court system tells you that you're best off getting a lawyer to navigate the process. So what this bill does is it creates an expedited expungement process, which is essentially they're creating an online portal where I would have to start the process by giving some basic information, but then all the communications that need to happen will happen behind the scenes, and all the fees and processes will be waived. So it's a step in the right direction for sure. The problem was that we were advocating for an automated process, but there is no database that exists in New Jersey that says, basically allows me to filter out all the cannabis-related arrests and then press delete, right? There is no system. Shame on New Jersey for not having that sort of system, but we don't. And we have literal paper across many different agencies that we would need to find in order for expungements to be comprehensive. So this is, I think, the next best thing, and that primarily, that plus the fact that we are expunging distribution arrests as well. So in New Jersey, under this bill, folks with up to 5 pounds who are accused of 5 pounds of distribution will be able to seek expungements as well. And that's novel and that's new for any state that has already legalized. So it's really exciting to be at the forefront of social justice when we're considering cannabis legalization. So in New Jersey, we have some things that are great coming down the pipe, some things that are not so great, but there's always room for improvement. And for S2703, for this bill, we need your support. The reason why the vote was pulled was because we had, I think, about 17 out of 21 necessary votes in the Senate. 17, so we're about 4 votes short. There are about 8 people or 9 people that are maybes that are on the fence across the state. And we need to bring them over to make sure that they see the light, that they know that they're on the wrong side of history if they vote no. And the idea behind why it is that your voice matters so much is because people actually, as jaded and as cynical as I might be about our legislative process and of our systems, generally speaking, our lawmakers actually do listen to constituents. So if they are receiving a high volume of calls and letters and petitions and individual meetings or even meeting requests from people who are advocating for legalization, they will mark it down, they will note it, and it will go into their calculus about whether or not they want to vote for legalization. So it's a really important moment right now over the next month or so to really make your voice heard. You can do that by going to the ACLU-NJ.org, ACLU-NJ.org, and on the front page, on the landing page, there is a Take Action button, and you can click on that to contact your lawmaker directly with a message about why it is that they need to vote yes on S2703. So the long-term story about this is that essentially, folks who may have been following the news after the March 25th poll vote may have seen some New York Times article that talked about how this effort collapsed or how it unraveled or something like that. But the long-term story is something that very few people cover. And that's that in 2014, when we first started advocating for legalization in earnest, the bill that came out in 2014 didn't even mention the word expungement. And now it's literally in the title of the bill. So it took 5 years for people to get the message. Even a year and a half ago, I was speaking at forums like this, and I would never be invited to be a keynote speaker or an opening remarks speaker. I would be invited as an afterthought after I elbowed my way into a conversation about legalization. And now we're talking about racial and social justice as the opening to entrepreneurship, to industry. And so I think we've come a really long way over the past 5 years. We just need to inch forward and get to the finish line, and I think we can get it done in New Jersey. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to take any question. I'll also linger for a little bit if anybody has any questions one-on-one that they want to ask. But thank you again for having me, and thank you, Frankie, for inviting me as well.
Thank you so much. We'll take a few questions. Let's do the shout.
So how will expungement work with, like, say, people's background check? Because, like, every time an employer goes through, you end up getting your reference gives you and then having provision like one job, and that's, you know, X amount of times more that if your record has been released.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So 2 things. First of all, New Jersey is a state that has banned the box, right? Meaning that New Jersey employers are no longer supposed to ask about criminal convictions in their applications, right? So that doesn't resolve the problem wholesale, right? It just sort of says that the first consideration can't be your criminal conviction. Now, the second thing is that there's something in the bill that they're calling virtual expungements, which I don't like that name, but it's basically a non-discrimination provision. So what it says is that employers and occupational licensing boards and mortgage providers, banks, etc., can't consider a prior cannabis conviction as grounds for denying an application. So I think that's strong language. Now the enforcement of it is going to be tough, right? Like, how will I know if somebody denied me a job because I had a cannabis conviction, or if I just wasn't qualified, or if somebody came along that was better, right? We're an at-will employment state, you know, there's no real way of telling that. But at least on paper, there's teeth to it, because if it is found that an employer discriminated against me, or any of those institutions discriminated against me, they can face fines. I have the right to sue under this in state court, and that's, you know, that's a new thing that they're creating in this bill. But in terms of background checks, if an expungement goes through, you know, there's always going to be traces of your criminal record. There may be internet articles or private, you know, people that maintain private databases of arrests and things like that. But if this expungement process goes through and the record is, you know, indeed expunged, then it shouldn't show up on a traditional background check. So the vast majority of folks should be okay. But the bill still creates exceptions for things like law enforcement, because folks in law enforcement still want to be able to discriminate against people that have cannabis convictions, and this bill allows for that. I think that was a compromise that they had to make. No, I'm saying if you want a job as a law enforcement agent, a cop somewhere, you could still be denied based on the fact that you have a cannabis conviction on your record. Yeah.
We can do one more question just for time.
Are there any ideas currently in which you would help induce a faster process in the expedition of criminal background checks for marijuana?
So, are there any ideas for expunging records to make it faster?
Yeah, so essentially the reason why I'm asking is because I know that based on every criminal record, there's a certain code, like you said before, and based on that code, it lists on what law you violated, and that law would be marijuana, essentially. So is there any automatic process right now that can link the code to the criminal background check in which that will help induce a faster process.
Oh, I see what you mean. I don't think there's anything in the works like that right now. That strikes me as something that requires innovation, and I don't know if folks at the legislature are that mindful of it. But what I can say is that I think the non-discrimination provisions in conjunction with the expungements will be good, right? The non-discrimination provision will be effective immediately. So, employers are on notice that they can't discriminate based on somebody's prior record, and then the expungements are going to come down the line after building out this online portal that's going to exist. So as an interim measure, we have these non-discrimination provisions, but then the full-blown thing with expungements is going to come down the pipe at some point. But the reality is, we know that it's not going to be a perfect solution, right? I know from my experience as an ACLU lawyer that every time we have a policy that's implemented, there are holes, there are problems. It's still going to be racially discriminatory. We know that about every single institution in this country, and there's still going to be problems. But it's on us as the ACLU and on the state to figure out how to address those problems as we keep going forward. And if the idea that you're suggesting is something that can be done, then we should certainly consider it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Everybody give it up for them all. It's awesome to have you. Thank you so much for coming out. Also, just a quick note, real quick for everybody. Bathrooms are there and down there. The bar's back there, so, make yourself at home. Now, we're going to kick it off with our first panel of the night. Super excited about this. I'm going to pass the torch to Joe Shapiro. He's getting a legal panel about legal compliance of marijuana in the state of NJ. Everyone give it up for Joe.
Hey, thanks, guys. We have about $1,500 worth of legal advice to give you. Average, we talk about a half hour. Average is hourly rate. We have 4 attorneys. We have a really good group for you. And so I've been thinking about how to address this group. What's the best way to get a ton of information funneled to you that's most relevant. And it seems that, as I stated earlier, this might be a group that's interested in startups, entrepreneurship, and that's the direction we're going to go. What is it to be a ground level team looking to hire an attorney? And the flip side of that coin, what is it to be an attorney advising a ground level team in a very uncertain legal landscape? I actually moderated the same panel, I had the pleasure of moderating the same panel last year at the first Green Rush, and it was done in conjunction with JC Tech Meetup and Scarlet Startups, which is Rutgers' largest alumni and student entrepreneur-focused group, about 1,800 members. And so, again, this year we're very lawyer-focused, and I think you should, at the end of the session, with the Q&A, make sure you have some questions ready, because this is the team that can pretty much answer anything that you need to know. So with that, you want to come on up? I won't do them justice. I'm going to pass the mic and allow introductions to be made by the best person who can do it. Mic on? Josh, you want to start?
Thank you, David. My name is Josh Bacher. I'm a partner with the law firm Advancing Urban Aaron. I'm co-chair of the litigation department at the Cannabiz Law Practice Group. I'm a member of Normal, New Jersey Cannabis Association, and I'm on the New Jersey State Bar Association Executive Committee for the Cannabis Law Committee. Good to see you.
Hello, my name is Rosemary Boyana-Matos. I'm an attorney in Hoboken, New Jersey. My partner Jessica and I have the first female minority-owned law firm that with a concentration in cannabis. And I practice in the areas of corporate, cannabis, and regulatory compliance. Last year, when the medical licenses were, the applications for the medical licenses came out, I assisted applying and submitting 2 applications. And pleasure to be here.
as I'm a native of Jersey City, so I'm happy to be here and provide some legal guidance for anybody who needs it. So I'm Rose's partner, so I'm the co-founder of Leanna Gonzalez and Associates. I'm also the vice president of the National Latinx Outreach for the national organization Minorities for Medical Marijuana.
Hi, my name is Alex. I am proudly not an attorney, much to my parents' chagrin. I decided to go into cannabis instead. They're very happy. So I do government relations for a company called Weedmax. We are the oldest and largest technology company that operates within the regulated cannabis industry, which is like the most millennial thing to say. Like, I feel like if I say it like 3 times in a row, a piece of avocado toast just appears. But I like to say that my job is to make weed boring, which I know. How could it be boring? Oh, I can't wait to tell you that.
Hey everybody, sorry for that. My name is Matt, and about 3 years ago I started my own law firm, aptly named MG Miller IP Law. We do more than IP now. We tell ourselves a one-stop shop for startups, leveraging having quit my job and started a company, familiar with the struggles that new companies face, and that builds a whole practice around it. We're growing. It started out just me. We're 4 attorneys, soon to be 5, and starting a company should consider talking to us. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Chelsea Duffy. This is thank you JC Tech Meetup for coordinating this entire thing, getting us in this room together. This is an awesome opportunity to network and get great legal advice. I myself, I'm a local here in Jersey City pursuing a medical cannabis retail license, also not an attorney. I'm here to provide a more human element to this panel, so I'll keep it very relatable, very real with you guys, and hopefully give you some good tips. If anybody in this room is looking to pursue on a retail level, we'd love to connect with you.
Okay, so to start off, how many here are starting their own business or somehow involved in looking to get a license or starting an ancillary business? If you could raise your hands. How many people in here just to learn that just first time getting exposed to this? How many people are not going to raise their hands? Okay. Right, so, you know, I practiced primarily the last decade bankruptcy and reorganization liquidation. About 2 years ago, I was approached by a client. We were leaving federal court, and he said, you know, I'm interested in getting involved in cannabis. I said, you know, I've been interested in following it for a while, but you know, I'm going to have to learn. And if you want to work with me, we'll do that. That's why for the last 2 years I've been involved meeting this great group, this great community. It is a great community. I've gotten the pleasure to know for a while everyone here, or you know, most of you, and a lot of people in the audience. So I think that meeting is, you know, a first step. But what's the next step? You know, you get involved in the community. You understand what's out there, but you need to kind of get down to brass tacks. So, Chelsea, what did it strike you that you wanted to form a team, get involved, and how did you take the first step?
Sure, so that's not a loaded question or anything. So, let's face it, you know, the passion for cannabis came a long time ago, very naturally. But the actual process of pursuing this as a retail business, that happened about 2 years ago. I went to a number of events just like this. Well, not just like this, because these things really existed a couple years ago, but events like the NJ Cannabis Symposium and things of that nature brought very like-minded individuals together, and it was through different partnerships right here in Jersey City that were formulated that brought the idea of actually taking the passion for cannabis, helping others, patients, everything of the nature, and aligning it with business. So I had friends right there in my own backyard coming and saying, hey, listen, you have a knack for business, you have a passion for cannabis, you have a passion to help and serve people. And I also think that, you know, when you're going about this and you're starting this, it's got to be way more than just, I want to get high, I want to get high with my friends. It's really got to be more about serving the betterment of the community, about patients, and about the further legalization for not just the state, but the country. So you really have to dive deep, figure out exactly why you want to do this. And again, it can't just be because of the fun or the allure, because nothing about this process is that much fun.
But when did you know when you had to approach an attorney? At what point in this process did you say, I need to talk to someone, I gotta figure something out, I need to talk to an attorney and figure out what the landscape looks like?
Sure, so that's actually step one. I would say, when you start thinking about this, it's all very intense, it's a very aggressive process. So what you should really focus on is actually making the connections with these attorneys and lawyers in this space, and do so first and foremost. They're going to be the ones that can really direct and guide you throughout this process. It was from the panel of the MJ Cannabis Symposium about a year ago, Josh was there, that really inspired.
I think Josh was there.
Yes, that's right. Josh was the host. So he himself and those in the panel really inspired me to make the proper connections with lawyers. Josh and I got to work very closely with one another. So I would say that's step one. Let the lawyers deal with the fun stuff.
Okay. So Matt, so a Chelsea analog who walks into your office, knows that she needs to talk to you. What's your first step? She knows she needs to talk to an attorney. What's your first step in advising what direction she should go? That's a very broad question. I'll let you run with it.
Honestly, the process starts with no legal advice at all. To ask why, how serious are you about this? Because what Chelsea said, it's a ridiculously long road, and I can line my own pockets, but I want to get a good result. And if they're not in it, they're going into it for the wrong reasons. They haven't really thought about the logistics of it. Then they shouldn't be doing it. And so really, it starts with a pragmatic conversation. But once you establish that, they really understand what they're getting into, they have a good plan, they have a path forward. Then there's four needs that startup companies have. Or just industry agnostic. You need to form your business. You need to get everything in writing. You need to have an idea around what you can, and you got to make sure that you pay the government the taxes you need. I guess in the cannabis space, I'd add a component of compliance, but just starting that's where you start.
So Alex, once someone is already, they're ready, they got their business form, everything's there, right? And you're not giving legal advice, we already established that, although you could because you took your LSATs, you told me that.
I did. I didn't take it.
You didn't have to tell us that. That was that. So then Matt calls you and he says, listen, I got a client, we got it all set up, ready to go. Where is this going? What is this going to pass? Can they even move? Because as a broad overview, there's 6 vertically integrated licenses out there, another 6 were awarded. What's next? Where can Matt tell Chelsea to go?
Well, I think number one is no one can get their business started until we actually pass a bill. And I personally want to thank Amal and the ACLU and groups like Drug Policy Alliance and activists like Leo Bridgewater who have been doing this work for years, because without them, we would not be having this conversation right now. It's really important to know that is focused on social justice. And so where are the bills right now? I just want to really echo what Amal said, which is your legislators right now need to hear from you. They've heard from me, they've heard from them all, they've heard from all these people, but it's now your turn to kind of join the chorus. And I know what you're thinking, like Game of Thrones is back on, like I don't have the time to do this. Well, guess what? You do, and we're going to do it right now together. So everyone, please take out your cell phones. I'll wait.
Alright, I got it. That's all it's worth it.
It's very worth it. If you do not contact your legislators, this bill will not get passed. If this bill does not get passed, New York will be a sewer punch, and I don't have to tell local entrepreneurs what it's like to not be first to market. So please text RUSH, thank you everybody, to 313131, and you'll be directed to a link. They'll have a pre-populated message for your legislator. Just put in your name, your address, and shoot that off real quick. Please feel free to tweet it out, Facebook it, all that good stuff. If you have time to tweet about Game of Thrones, you have time to tweet about this bill, because we, as New Jerseyans, we can't dominate this industry until we pass a bill. If you haven't contacted your legislator and you want to get involved in this business, you've already messed up the first step. As folks who have already been involved in the industry, you need to have 1 foot in business, 1 foot in advocacy at all times. I forgot what your question was.
Well, let's see, you answered. The question's done, you answered that. So what's give us the,
Status, okay.
give us the text number and what we texted, just in case anybody missed it.
One more time, got it?
Yeah.
Text RUSH, R-U-S-H, to 313131, and please fill out the form. And you can, engage in the democratic process, because they want to hear from you. You need to join the chorus. They're really sick and tired of hearing all of us on stage. It's now your turn to really, get this through the finish line.
So, is it gonna work?
If everyone does it,
Yeah.
pass it on to 5 friends, make them do it, and have the next 5 friends do it. We're really at a critical point. We've never been closer than in this time. Like, this is go time. I don't like the mentality of it's not if, it's when. Yes, it will become legal. Yes, but we need to hear from you. It only becomes legal if we hear from you. A lot of people have already put in the work. It's your turn now.
Thank you. So, Jessica, so now Matt calls you and says, I understand that there's some requirements, there's some diversity possibly being written into the legislature, into legislation. What is that about? What need to be aware of when applying when it comes to diversity? Expand upon that, because he doesn't know what to ask beyond that.
So we're asking about social equity?
Social equity.
Okay.
Yeah, excuse me.
Okay, great. So with social equity, actually, is one thing that Rose and our firm really addresses, because as women of color who grew up in Hoboken and Jersey City, we understand what it's like to have to be able to rise above your circumstances and not become a product of your environment. In the last round, what we saw was for the 6 alternative treatment center licenses that were awarded, they were all huge multi-state operators with huge capital backings. It wasn't very clear. It was basically made that startup companies can apply and all that, but in reality, it wasn't really true. No, not really. And so right now, the bill contemplates for adult use, different from the last round, which was for medical cannabis. So speaking specifically about adult use, so right now the bill does contemplate some provisions that do really speak to reparations and restoration and community investment. And that's really what we need to focus on when it comes to the social justice aspect of it, because we know New Jersey, huge, diversity, Jersey City, the most diverse city in the U.S., populated, densely populated, and basically what we want is an industry that also reflects what New Jersey looks like. We don't really want to see all these huge multi-state operators really backed by these basically, but like white men. And so what the bill contemplates right now for social justice, there are 30%, about 35% of the total amount of licenses will be conditional licenses, meaning you won't have to have your application fully together, but they'll have an expedited process. You'll then have 120 days to perfect your application. Along with that, there's also going to be micro licenses. So there's going to be 4 different classes of licenses that will be awarded. So class 1 will be for cultivation, class 2 will be for processing, class 3 for wholesale, class 4 for retail. So within those you have 35% that will be conditional licenses, and then you have 10% of each class of license will be a micro license, and 25% overall. So I know those are a lot of numbers. But micro licenses, what really you're looking at is they're just establishments, but just on a smaller scale. So for micro licenses, 100% of the ownership will have to be New Jersey residents who have resided in New Jersey for the past 2 years. And then you also cannot have more than 10 employees, no more than 2,500 square foot, and no more possession of 1,000 plants per month. So those micro licenses are really going to allow a lot of really, more like the little guy to come in who doesn't have millions of dollars from investors, or who has family members and friends who are millionaires, because right now the way it looks like it's either you are a millionaire or a millionaire, and that's really how you really get into the game. So these micro licenses will really pave a path for those folks who are really starting up in the space and really want to get involved and to be able to. And then aside from that, there's also going to be, I believe it is about 30% of all licenses will also have to be awarded to either women, disabled veterans, restrictions, but there is going to be an office, and I mix up the way that it is, but it's an office of minorities, women, and disabled veterans, business development that's really going to oversee how those licenses are awarded and the business development of those. Additionally, there will be an expedited expungement process. So as our previous speaker just spoke about, some people don't know that New Jersey has one of the most onerous expungement processes in the country. And so this expedited process is going to be online. There's not going to be any fees. So it takes off a little bit of the burden off of the petitioner who's petitioning to remove the conviction from their record as well. And there will also be delivery. There will be consumption lounges for retail as well. But those are just some of the few parts of the bill that really do speak to really allowing more of these smaller and startup companies to get involved, because we just don't want to see what happened last time.
So Rose, what's the practical? So now you're ready to actually make an application, if and when that comes. What's some of the bigger practical hurdles that you've seen when you were preparing one last summer, when you were losing out Beach done last summer?
So last summer was a very interesting time because the RFA, the request for application, came out in mid-July. The applications dropped August 2nd, and they were due August 31st. So you had less than a month to submit these applications that were quite onerous, the kind of information that was requested. Some of the things that I would advise people that are interested in submitting applications is try to secure property as quickly as possible. You do not have to have property secured. It's sufficient to have a plan to secure property, but at least in the last round of applications, that was a tiebreaker. So those who actually had the property secured would win in a tie situation. Funding, if you do not have access to a large amount of capital, funding is also an issue that needs to be addressed early on. Making sure that you get the proper paperwork prepared by an attorney so that you can get investments. And of course you need operating agreements if you're an LLC. If you're a corporation, you need bylaws. There's also requirements. If you secure property, you're going to need leases or sales contracts. There's a lot of legal work involved in this process. Just to expand on what Jessica was saying before about diversity, there was a component for diversity in the last round. There was 50 points awarded, but it was broken down into 2 questions. So 25 was awarded if you could establish that you were primarily minority owned. And then there was another 25 if you were a member of the Women and Minorities Enterprise Association. And so that part is included in the bill now. And for those who are not aware, that's an application process. They require like 3 years of financials. It takes some time to process. So if you are a minority-owned business and you want to get that advantage by getting that certification, it's something that you should start doing now, sooner rather than later.
So Josh, on the topic of scoring, what are your thoughts about the scoring this last round? Right? You don't have any opinion on that.
So, the scoring was a fraud the last round. We're actually pursuing an appeal on behalf of some clients on which it was arbitrary and capricious. The whole process lacked transparency. A couple of key examples. When we did this the first time, a big critical factor was geographic diversity. There were a couple of applicants from Montclair that didn't want to put the vote in Montclair, so they kicked one. This time, remarkably enough, we put 2 in Atlantic City. One, you might have seen, actually wrote a big check to Governor Murphy, so it's no coincidence that she got there. Another one, the law firm they used, one of the senior partners is a very close contact, I think it's her sister, at a place called the Department of Health, which is what issued licenses. So I agree with Alex that you should take out your phones, but you should also take out your wallets. Because if you really want to get a license, I think everyone is correct here on this panel, that it's very important to have financing in place, real estate in place, drug-free zone compliant real estate in place, certainly diversity. But if you don't have good contacts in Trenton, you're competing up against, as someone mentioned, some real big national players who are writing big checks. And unfortunately, right now, that's the nature of the landscape here. The issuance of these past 6 licenses, it was no coincidence that the RFA was issued 15 days before the license. They gave everyone a month. They knew full well that most people would not be able to effectively compete in month and get what turns out to be conservatively 300 or 400 pages of an application drafted in that brief time, unless you were able to throw $250,000 at it and another $250,000 at contributing to public officials. So I don't want to be the naysayer here, but unless the legislation passes, as I'm also suggesting, if it's going to be as competitive as the last time with 6 licenses, there were 146 applicants and 6 licenses were granted, it is an uphill battle and the big players keep the smaller players out of the space. Micro licenses are a great idea. Diversity and minority and female preferences are a great idea, but for the most part, people are just using strong people up there anyway. They're putting a woman, an African American, on the application, but it's really just backed by one of the national players. So it's a challenge to compete these days, which is why the legislation is so important. Because the current bill doesn't have any limit, and it would really open up the application process for the major one. Sorry for the candor.
That's refreshing, isn't it? I thought that was great. Thanks, Scott. I mean, it's true. You have to look at, we want to know what's going on. That's what's going on. So now that you have the landscape, and let's say we're not looking for licensing. Matt, what are some IP, what's some intellectual property assets that you might be looking to secure if you're trying to get into the business, but maybe not necessarily looking to get a license, which, as we know, is incredibly hard to do.
Sure, I think that's a great thing to bring up. So Alex mentioned this, that no one can start a business until the state legalizes. That's not entirely true. I represent a number of ancillary businesses. So if you're a non-plant touching business, let's say you sell hydroponic or aeroponic growing apparatuses, you have a real estate trust, you license these things out. There are lots of ways you can get involved in a non-plant touching manner. So in terms of what IP, so just putting uninitiated IPs or intellectual property, if you have some ideas, planning or something that you want to make sure nobody steals, IP is what you use to stop that. So patents, I'm sure you guys have heard it, people are innovating in the space. Lots of, I can't talk about a lot of them, but types of things that you see, there are patents on genetics of various cannabis strains. Patents on cultivation methods, on hydroaeroponic stuff, soil blends, lighting systems, like housing those lighting systems. So it's really, a lot of innovation is going on, and what's kind of cool in the space is that, at least on the patent side of stuff, you have to use printed publications to project any innovations that are out there. And much of the knowledge in the space has been kept under wraps, and people will not find a scholarly journal article on how to cultivate cannabis. So a lot of the innovations, are not even truly innovative, are legally available. You can take that with a grain of salt, it's, back-sensitive analysis, all the disclaimers, but I'm able to get some pretty awesomely broad stuff just because a lot of the knowledge hasn't been disseminated in printed publications, which the law requires for you to block you from getting a patent. Long-winded way, but if you're innovating, you mentioned something new, you're smoking apparatus, or something along those lines, there might be something there. In addition, branding is really good. There are branding companies. I know Chelsea's working with one, and they say they help you. Okay, are you feeling get your name? Are you going to protect us? Is this logo going to happen? And I think that's cool stuff to do. Copyright is just like your expression, artwork, and things like that. It's nothing really cannabis specific in there. And there's also trade secrets. So a lot of times you get these people, speaking at this convention in Boston, this guy, he's invented a pretty cool cultivation extraction technique, like hybrid technique. You want to keep it on the maps. That's actually a fun way to do it. There's a federal trade secret law which cannabis, even though you have a cannabis-related thing, you can take advantage of. So it depends, standard lawyer answer, but there's a lot of stuff. So just put on your creative thinking caps and do some research.
So to that point, I think it's fair to say you get a great percentage of licensed businesses which are heavily regulated, and you have unlicensed non-plant touching. What are some good examples? This could be calculated. Non-plant touching, non-regulated ways that you get involved in this business now without having to go through a big wall, PPOP, necessarily, at least to start with. What are some examples that you've all seen?
Weed maps.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about weed maps. So as I stated, we're a tech company that operates within the space. We're not plant touching. Basically, we're most well known for our app that you can download right on your phone right now. What we do is we connect consumers and patients with dispensaries, products, brands, doctors who can write medical recommendations. And we basically, most of our revenue is generated through advertising. And through this, we've kind of been able to have an incredibly large reach within the industry because we aren't plant touching. We're in every single jurisdiction that has some sort of regulated cannabis, whether it be for medicinal or adult use purposes. And that's also why, from a government relations standpoint, why our GR shop is really so great, is because we've seen how these markets have rolled out in all these different places, and we can really pinpoint what policies and regulations have worked and what hasn't. So I'm going to do another plug. We have a really boring website called wonpolicy.com, which has all of our white papers on it. So if you want to really get boring and learn about zoning, highly recommend that. Check it out.
And I'll also ask about that because I get many questions all the time of, how do I enter the cannabis industry? How do I get involved? I don't want to do a dispensary, I don't want to do a grow. And so what I tell people is use the current skills that you have now. So prior to me being involved in cannabis, I was heavily involved in intellectual property, so dealing with branding and managing the domestic and international trademark portfolio for a large firm. And I found my interest in cannabis, and I decided to use the skills that I have as an attorney to enter the space. So if you're an accountant, if you are a graphic designer, if you are a PT, if you are a landlord, we need all of that in the space. If you are just somebody, even if you're in health and you want to start educating folks, that's really what we need. And one thing that Rose and I look for is, a value that we add to our clients is, when they're like, well, I don't have an accountant. I said, great. I have somebody who's completely fluent in 280E, which is a provision in the tax law that says that cannabis companies cannot really deduct what normal companies would be able to have as deductions. So it's really getting well versed in whatever type of area that you're in. So if you're in IT, if you're in accounting, if you're in insurance, just try to learn about it. Try to go to events, meet some folks, because more likely than not, they're going to need the type of service that you are offering. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you don't need to, I've had people be like, should I go to law school to do this? And I'm telling them, no, just do exactly what you're doing now, just apply it to the cannabis industry. And that's just a really good way for everybody to be able to participate in this, because it's a historic moment. What's happening in New Jersey and the US is a historic moment. It's a privilege to be a part of this momentum. So really just take what you have and learn about it and apply it.
See, I'm not surprised Jessica said she dissuaded someone from going to law school. Every single lawyer will do the same thing, right, Josh? You would never recommend it. Okay, let's open up for some Q&As. Does anybody have any questions? They can be general or specific. Anything you want to know? Let me walk over with the mic.
You talked about the different categories of licenses, but in the bill, is there any type of, is there a number of licenses that's going to be issued, or how is that going to be determined?
Sure, so there is currently no cap in the bill, so there's no maximum amount that are going to be distributed. So really, it's just going to be up to it's going to be a 5-member the Cannabis Commission, I believe that it's called, and they were really going to oversee the amount of licenses and then make sure that those percentages that I talked about before for conditional micro licenses for women and minorities that are going to be distributed accordingly.
And I think that provision is something that we really see New Jersey learning from other states, because what we do see is when you put an artificial cap on licenses, is only the well-connected are able to secure licenses. Also, it's really important to have a number of licenses that will properly serve the industry, because if there isn't, no reasonable person in Jersey City is going to go drive 2 hours out of their way to go purchase a legal product that's most likely more expensive. So if there isn't a sufficient amount of licenses, then the illegal market will kind of continue to exist, which then kind of makes this exercise null and void. And also what's great about the bill is it also offers for delivery licenses. So that's just another point of retail as well for the illegal market.
Any other questions? Okay.
Is there a decision made on the tax that's going to be put on this, the exact percentage that's going to be on it? Because I know there was a discussion between 5%, 20%, and all of that.
Yes, so the current bill that is pending, hopefully it'll be up for the legislature next month, is a flat tax of $42 per ounce to be taxed at the cultivation level. And then there is a tax for the municipal tax, depending on whether or not you're a cultivator, manufacturer, processor, or retailer. It ranges between 2% for manufacturers and cultivators and processors, 1% for wholesalers, and 3% for dispensaries.
Any other questions? Back there. He's selling CBD flower, right? Yeah. So I guess that's technically the hemp.
Yeah, so CBD and hemp-derived CBD is kind of a loaded question. So the answer is maybe. The farm bill that everyone knows about that passed in December permitted the states to create a regulatory scheme for the cultivation of hemp and the production of CBD. Few, if any, states have actually done that, and notwithstanding the farm bill, the Food and Drug Administration still finds that if CBD is used as a food additive or a dietary supplement, it remains illegal. For that reason, most of what's through those doors would actually be subject to seizure demand. The good news is that Scott Gottlieb, who is the commissioner, unfortunately outgoing commissioner of the FDA, has already put in the works comment period to change the FDA protocol. There's a public hearing May 31st, and then we have a comment period. So hopefully the FDA is going to come in alignment with the farm bill this past December. But right now, any CBD that's added to any kind of food, or whether it's a dietary supplement, is technically illegal. There were some seizures in New York last month. There were some seizures in Texas a little while ago. And although you can buy it pretty regularly, it's everywhere you go, those products are technically illegal.
So I planted that question because I wanted you to say that, and I wanted to get a shameless plug for an event. We have an event tomorrow night. I gotta say, because we've been planning for over a year with Rutgers, Cook Campus down in New Brunswick. Again, I mentioned earlier, I work with Scarlet Startups. It's the largest Rutgers alum entrepreneurship group. So we have a great event tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Rutgers, hemp entrepreneurship. So if you look at bit.ly / I think it's hemp NJ9. I'll tell you in a second. I haven't heard of that. So this is really shameless and taking all your time. So it's bit.ly / NJ9. It's a free event. We have 3 professors, plant biologists. We have CEO of Hillview Med, local New Jersey company. A lot of others. We have Mr. Miller here, intellectual property expert. So yeah, if you didn't get enough of that, you can see him again tomorrow night. It's relevant. Okay. So I saw a couple more hands.
So you all mentioned barriers to entry permits to break into the business. So like in your typical business where if you have a robust business plan and some kind of basic cash flow, it's pretty easy to get some form of debt or equity financing. So what is the primary barrier that you see in the marijuana business as opposed to other businesses?
Debt and equity financing is tough because the banks can't provide it. There's the Safe Banking Act, which is currently pending in Congress. There's, I think, 160-something sponsors right now. But for the most part, commercial lending is not permitted. So you either have to go to Canada, you can do something called a Reg A or Reg B security offering, which is somewhat complicated but possible. But in New Jersey, the real challenge is even on the East Coast, everything's more expensive. So if you've looked at a business plan for an operation in the West, Colorado, California, Washington, they'll tell you you can open a dispensary for $750,000 or $1 million. Jersey's the most densely populated state in the country. The real estate that's available is actually very, very, very scarce. The price per square foot is difficult. Insurance costs are higher, labor costs are higher, everything's more expensive. And so, our dispensary in this state is probably going to cost you in excess of $2.5 million at least. Cultivation and processing facilities 10 to 15. So raising that kind of capital, if you're not a big player, is a challenge if you don't have access to banks.
Great questions. I think we have time for one more, maybe 1.5 minutes. Behind? No, then here's the last one.
So, as a future market cultivation, dropped in the bill 4 times. I one thing that really has us so confused is the plant count for a market cultivation. It says 1,000 plants, but how is that interpreted? Is that interpreted in the flower stage, for your clones, for your vegging, mothers? There hasn't really been defined too well, and when hasn't been set on that.
That'll mostly just be developed during the rulemaking process. So I would say to just keep an eye out on that. Like you are everyone as an American citizen is allowed to comment on those rules. So I would just say keep an eye out. But they just haven't been developed yet. But that is interesting.
Okay, so we've been seeing in the news a lot that Oregon has a cannabis surplus problem because they've issued too many licenses. Is there anything that New Jersey's doing from learnings from that process?
So what I would say is Oregon issued too many cultivation licenses and not enough dispensary licenses. So basically, you have people that have product, but they just can't get it on the shelves. So I think once again, the importance of getting engaged with your local government here is really important because what we see is all these preemptive bans coming in from some of these New Jersey towns who are really against dispensaries that might be open to cultivation. So I think just making sure that we license out enough dispensaries to meet market demand is how we kind of avoid an Oregon situation.
And also, Oregon had a problem where their tax rate, I believe, is about 30%. And so at that point, you might as well just go down to your man down the street and to just get the cannabis that you need. And so that's something that New Jersey was really struggling with for a while. It was like the legislators were looking at 12%, or if they wanted something as high as 25%. But when you're looking at something as a tax that high, all you're doing is incentivizing people and almost encouraging them to continue to participate in the illicit market. And that's why for a while it was this really tug of war about the tax rate. So when we got to the flat rate of 42, that would be, the burden would be more on the cultivators, and then it would, trickle down to the consumers. So that's not something that we're really seeing right now because it looks like, New Jersey took note of the states where a high tax rate really had a very, it just had a very negative effect on how the consumers were going, in their purchasing decisions. So that's one thing that has been taken into consideration.
Great, thank you all. Really great panel. This is a ton of good information. We could give a round of applause.
And we'll give it up to Joe, the moderator, who's also present for all the speakers. Thank you all. Alright, quick note on CBD stuff. All the CBD products out there are extremely legal. There's no food or drink products out there. We made a point of that. So don't worry, you're homework. I'll let you know that. That's it. Is there a clicker over there anywhere? I might have lost a clicker, but that's okay. We use things sometimes. We keep moving on. That's what this is all about, this community. But then you find things, and that's even more important. So we want to introduce our next panel. Thank you, everybody. One more round of applause for our our next panel is going to be about being an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry and kind of some of the facts about CBD versus THC. So we've dived into that a little bit. So everybody who's on this panel, please come to the front. Salon, Dave, there we go. Everyone give it up for the panel. So we're going to make one better introduction to themselves than I'm doing right now. I'm just really happy that they're here. All right, get comfy, guys. We're family now. Take the stairs. Is there enough seats for everybody? All right. Oh, we're missing Tom Murphy. Can you please go and grab Tom Murphy? He's at the Holy Health booth. But in the meantime, we're going to get to know the rest of our panel. We have a lot of very awesome, unique people here with different perspectives of the cannabis industry. So I kind of want to start with passing the mic about who they are and what they're doing. Start with David.
Good evening, my name is David Strong. I am the Chief Technology Officer for Harvest 360. I'm a native from Jersey City, born and raised in this area, and happy to be back home. I've been out in Colorado for the last 5 years, starting with my company, understanding this industry and some of the needs that a lot of entrepreneurs will have, and figuring out ways to find solutions and fill those gaps.
Thank you, David. Hi, everybody. My name is Salam Diri. I'm the CEO and co-founder for Sanmohana Yoga and Wellness. I co-founded it with my lovely girlfriend who's sitting in the front, who teaches the yoga classes. We are an education and event platform where we use CBD and yoga to educate people on their endocannabinoid system, how to use CBD properly and responsibly, and the many health benefits of the plant. We teach people how to use it to help their physical and mental health. I'm also an account executive for Harvest 360, where we submitted 2 licenses in New Jersey last year. We're a fully vertical consulting company. We did not win a license, but I won an amazing team that I still work with every day. I'm very grateful for them. And I'm born in Jersey City, New Jersey. I'm raised. Yeah, let's give a shout out to New Jersey and I'm also born and raised in Northburg, New Jersey, and I'm very excited to see cannabis flourish in my community and in my state. And this is going to be a really big game changer for everybody. So I hope you're here to learn and make some big changes in the area.
Hi, I'm Laura Logano, and that was a great segue because I have an online learning platform called Holistic Canna, and it's about integrating cannabis as part of lifestyle to upregulate the endocannabinoid system, combining it with yoga, meditation, breathwork, nutrition, chiropractic, etc. It's a 30-hour seed program, and I can also break down modules. And I'm super excited that my book, published by St. Martin's Press, just came out called The CBD Oil Miracle, but it's about a lot more than CBD. And I'm also a dietitian and an integrative clinical nutritionist with a private practice in Hoboken, where I have raised my family, sitting right over here at this table. Though I have lived in Hoboken for a long time, I always have to shout out that I am a Brooklyn girl.
Oh, it's just another book over there.
Brooklyn. Hi, Mike Z here. I'm a former Googler, so I used to sell software before I came into the cannabis world. Now I work as a business coach. I'm author of The Entrepreneur's Guide to Cannabis. I've been published on Forbes, Entrepreneur, International Business Times. Founder of High and Wide, New York's largest cannabis meetup group. We do education and networking events similar to this one in New York. Join us on May 1st for real estate investment in cannabis. I'm happy to provide everyone here a discount code because you're here tonight investing in your cannabis education, and I love that.
Hi everybody, my name is Sonia Singh. I am a double board licensed psychotherapist in the state of New Jersey. I am also the executive director of the Cannabiz health programs at the Center of Inner Transformations. We are an outpatient mental health and substance use treatment agency located in central New Jersey. We are also home of the largest mental health and cannabis treatment program in the state of New Jersey within the last year. And we've actually just celebrated our 1-year anniversary at the end of March. Our cannabis treatment program has qualified over 800 people for New Jersey's medical marijuana program in 2018. In 2019, we are looking to surpass those numbers as we are growing and we are opening an office in Bergen County as well as in South New Jersey, in Camden, New Jersey. So, my part of the cannabis realm is focused on substance use and mental health treatment. We have health programs that teach people how to utilize cannabis and its healing mechanisms, and to learn how to develop behavior regimens that allow them to implement this as a lifestyle change in a healthy and safe, productive way. So that's me.
Hey everyone. So first up, thanks for putting together an awesome event. Give it up. It's been awesome. Hopefully I met most of you guys today. Did a lot of talking over the last couple of days. All good stuff. So again, for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Tom Murphy. I am a co-founder of Holy Health. We are a health and wellness company that focuses on CBD. I got introduced to CBD about a year and a half ago from a doctor out in California. I was suffering from severe panic attacks on a daily basis. Tried the prescription med route, didn't really work. So when I took CBD for the first time, miraculously, panic attacks went away. Became obsessed with the hemp plant, became obsessed with the industry, and about a year later, Holy Health was born. So here I am, glad to be here, so thanks for having me.
Awesome. Give it up for our panel. Alright, so I want this conversation to be like we're all just chilling in the living room right now as a family. These people aren't here, it's just us. We're just chilling out. We're chill. So, feel free to answer questions as you see fit. Don't feel like you have to answer everything. Just kind of pass the mic and whatever makes sense, go with the flow. I kind of want to kick this off with question. JC Tech Meetup. A lot of people that come out are entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs and try to get into different industries and try to figure out how to get involved. So, my question is someone who wants to get involved in cannabis, let's say they are not exposed to that on a daily basis and they want to just get into that industry. From your experience, how would you say, what's your advice for them, and how did you get into the industry, and what's your advice for an entrepreneur who wants to get started here? We'll kick it off with David.
So, good question. I'm a fan of reading the analytical reports. You can learn a lot from that. So there's a couple that I would recommend. BES, Analytics, New Frontier, the National Cannabis Industries Association. If you become a member of that, they give you access to certain reports. It's a good way to understand the market, right? You don't want to go out and say that you're going to sell 80% flower when we know flower is on the decline and concentrates are increasing. And so to understand the market, to understand the products that you want to get into, I think it's really important to do, just like anything else, study what's currently happening, and there's certainly enough information out there to make informed decisions. And really what that segues into is creating a business plan. So you investigate first and understand what it is that where the lowest hanging fruits in the industry are, and develop a business plan around that. It's good to work with experienced operators, consultants. Legal is extremely important, but I think there's probably a lot more good advice in here as well.
Yeah, so what I get this question asked pretty often, and so what I really suggest to people is pretty much whatever career you're already doing, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you can get into the cannabis industry. That career exists in the cannabis industry, and it's probably rare because there's not a lot of people in that cannabis industry doing what you do. So if you get in there now, there'll be a good chance that you will go pretty far. Another thing I tell people is work at what you're good at. What's your strong points? What are you good at doing? What services can you offer? And go with that. And then another thing I usually tell people is maybe follow a dream you have. There's an opportunity to make a big change in your life in a very positive way in other people's lives. And follow that dream, follow your passion. A lot all of us here are extremely passionate at what we do. We wake up and we feel like we're working. It's like we're just like doing what we love. And we're doing it all day, we do it all night, even on the weekends and even on vacation. And it's no problem because we really love it, honestly. I've never been so happy in my life to be in this industry. So how I got into it, I actually, back in 2017, went to a high Y event. That was my first cannabis event, industry event that I went to. I went with Ronnie Soto. I walked in and I'm like, wow, I need to get into the cannabis industry. How can I integrate what I'm already doing into cannabis? I was a gym owner, I've been a personal trainer for 15 years. I've been doing health and wellness and fitness for a really long time, and I figured out how to do that with the cannabis industry. Health and wellness, educating people. I saw that there was a need, just like Laura and sorry, Sonia. There's a need, all right? So there's a need for health and wellness in this industry. So whatever you're already doing, whatever you're passionate about, I'm sure you can do it in the cannabis industry.
Of course, I got into it because cannabis is a plant. I actually had somebody say to me, "Oh, you're a nutritionist. How are you in cannabis?" And I go, "Well, it is a plant that grows in the ground, and I am a healthcare professional, so it made perfect sense to me." But and that was obvious to me. But I think even if you're in other industries, like if you're in the printing industry, you can create a separate business that's about cannabis printing. If you're in the film industry and you're a producer, you can actually create a whole other division about cannabis. So I think that just taking exactly what you're doing and pitching it to anybody, any cannabis entrepreneurs is a great way to go. People who are meeting planners, that's a skill set. I met somebody at a Room and Grow meeting who creates projects and events on high-end yachts. She is now taking that business and making a cannabis business. And I go, well, I'm going to get invited to that. So, I think that is very accurate to say take what you know and what you love and apply it in the business. It's really, really wide open. And Mike is also one of the first people I met. And I want to say, notice he's wearing a Brooklyn jacket because he too is a Brooklyn boy.
Jersey City first.
I agree with everything that's been said. I guess to give it a different perspective, I would say if you don't know practically a business that you want to start today, but you want to get involved in the industry, then I always encourage people to get started with activism and advocacy. It's a great way to get educated about the plant and the community and to build your network and also to build some credibility because I know a lot of the people that I've worked with, they look for that when they're hiring. So, if maybe you don't want to be an entrepreneur, maybe you want to get a job in the industry. If that's the case, then I would recommend to definitely get some activism or advocacy experience on your resume because then you can prove to people that you have the passion and that you're willing to work in this space, not because you see the opportunity for financial gain, but because you're mission-driven. And for me, this has always been a mission-driven, social entrepreneurship type industry. And I really have found, and maybe this is just my bias, so take it with a grain of salt, but I've found that most of the legacy entrepreneurs and the folks who have been laying the groundwork for this industry to be able to exist are mission-driven, and they view this as how do we build a sustainable, innovative industry and not just, how do we maximize profit? So, I would encourage you to know what you're getting yourself into in addition and also think long term. Because if you think that this is just going to be fast, easy money, then think again.
Yeah, I think I agree with everybody and what they've shared so far. A few things stick out to me. I think the first thing that anybody should do entering this community and this business space is education. One of the things I learned, I want to say about a little bit more than a year ago. I'm also a guest lecturer at Rutgers, and one of the major things that we always focus on when we're giving back education to our students is making sure that we use evidence-based resources. However, in this field, we lack evidence-based resources, right, for many different reasons, because we can't do, the research that we would like to do at this point in the space. So there are still many resources out there. I encourage everyone to get educated as much as possible. And then network. When I first started my programs, the first thing that I did was develop my programs and represent myself, represent my company, represent what I was trying to do for the public, what I was trying to do for MJ patients. And what I did was go to networking spaces like this one. I went to the CWCB Expo, I believe, at the Jacob Javits Center, if I have it correct. And I just started contacting everybody, every single table, every single person, every single professional that I could find in the space. I introduced myself, I let them know what I was doing. So I think that first and foremost, get educated, and then represent your craft. Most of you are already professionals, so you know what you're doing. Now to transfer that, and doing something more powerful in this space is something that definitely can be done, because there's plenty of opportunities. Just like they just said, the industry is wide open for us to create some phenomenal change, right? And we're the instruments for that change. We're driving that vehicle. So once again, education and networking.
So I won't belabor this point. Just from my own experience, and this is the last thing we'll say on this topic, like what she said, network. You would be surprised. I mean, I've worked in finance most of my life. Anybody that I've ever reached out to for advice, help, even competitors were willing to help me. Because I think from our perspective, whether the cannabis industry as a whole, whether you're THC, CBD, regardless, everybody's trying to join this movement to push this bus ahead and work together, educate, and make it known. So again, I think just ask for help, right? If you don't know where you want to work or what you want to do, ask, do some research. You'd be surprised the responses that you get.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So I'll start this one off the top, since you had to piggyback off what everyone said. You get to be the pioneer of this next answer.
No answer.
Bit of a pivot on the business side of it. Kind of want to dive into the physical and psychological health benefits of CBD and THC. I think a lot of people are interested to know kind of why people are so interested in plant and kind of what it does to you that is really beneficial and from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, when I talk to people, I tell them that, people are like, well, how can CBD help so many things? And the way that I position it to friends, family, customers, people alike, is that, CBD doesn't actually fix anything, right? It inhibits those receptors to self-heal. So you're basically healing yourself and creating that balance and homeostasis in your body, right? So I think in terms of whether you're dealing with, like me, anxiety, I was a former athlete in college and professionally, and I have a lot of aches and pains and arthritis, where you're having issues with sleep. The reason why it's so effective is because it inhibits your body to fix itself. So I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to CBD, and I think we're just in a time of day where people are going for this holistic, natural route, right? The big pharma is over. There's a tremendous amount of side effects with all these different types of prescription drugs, and in the end, you're ingesting a plant, something that's grown from the ground. How harmful can that be?
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it better myself. I am a black sheep in my community in many ways because I practice alternative treatment, alternative medicine. Most therapists, we were all trained on the same model, the medical model. However, I learned within the first 5 years or so of my career that that's not the only way that people could help heal themselves. That's just the most popular model in our westernized culture. So with that being said, I went ahead and I did a lot of self-education to really understand the healing mechanisms of the plant. So for a lot of MMJ patients, my focus is mental health illness. So, there's different strains. So we all know this. I don't know if everybody else knows this, but there's two main specific type of strains, sativa and indica, and a lot of people don't understand that both of them give you different effects. So for a lot of my patients, they prefer indica strains that help promote a relaxation response, which CBD does the same. Right, so there's more of an exact science to using cannabis and using it the right way. CBD is more effective in many ways, just because it's easier for people to use regularly without them experiencing any induced psychosis that might come or be associated with the THC and cannabis strains. So CBD overall has so many, I can keep on going, so many health benefits. But once again, I focus on mental health illness because I'm a mental health therapist. So overall, I would say that CBD helps promote, a relaxation state. Similar to what he said, it promotes homeostasis. It helps people heal naturally. Right, so that's one of the reasons why I support a lot of my clients and their CBD use in conjunction with their medical marijuana use.
I'm a proponent of CBD, I'm a proponent of THC, I'm a proponent of terpenes, I'm a proponent of all plants, but more so than anything, I would encourage you to be a conscious consumer. So, get educated about how your plant is actually being grown, how it's being processed or extracted. There's very little transparency right now, especially if you're purchasing on the underground market. You have no idea what kind of pesticides, chemicals, additives, or whatever other potentially harmful elements might have been added to your medicinal plant. So I would just encourage you, if you're a consumer, to try to get more educated. And then once you get educated, educate others, because a lot of healthcare professionals, unfortunately, they're not taught about the endocannabinoid system or cannabinoids or any of this plant's magic properties in their training. So, you have to kind of put the pressure on them and open their eyes and ears. And with that said, I'm not going to go further on there, and I'm going to pass to a healthcare professional.
So one of the things we know is that the cannabis plant actually really is leading the charge for personalized lifestyle medicine. Because cannabis does not work the same way for everybody. So that's why we have so many different cultivars or chemovars of cannabis, which most of us call strains. And when we look at that, we're talking now about THC and CBD. Those are cannabinoids in the plant, and we have hundreds of cannabinoids in the plant. And there's a lot we don't know, and there's a lot we're going to learn about some of those other cannabinoids that have other initials like CBN, and even CBDA. So CBDA, THCA, those are the non-decarboxylated forms of the cannabinoids. So that means before it gets heated. And we are seeing incredible effects also with those cannabinoids. And that's what we're going to be seeing in the future, are products that contain cannabinoids that have not been heated and the effects of those, along with the terpenes, as Mike said, because there's overlay with terpenes. And what are the terpenes? The terpenes are the essential oils in the plant. So if you ever take your fingernail and put it on the outside of a citrus fruit and you get that beautiful aroma, that's the terpene, that's the essential oil. So we know that cannabis contains things like beta-caryophyllene, limonene, linalool, and those all have different effects, and those all can impact the other cannabinoids. So there's really a lot to know about the plant, and everybody has different responses. So for anyone, for instance, who might be tightly wound, limonene is not a good thing to use because that's going to bring you up a little. So for those people, a cannabis plant that has a higher linalool, which is lavender, could be helpful. So there's just so much to know, and there's really so much benefit. And does everybody know that the government has a patent on the plant and on the CBD as an anti-inflammatory? It is the most potent anti-inflammatory plant. Cannabis, and particularly CBD, is well known as an anti-anxiety. So in my book, I actually have 32 different conditions for which cannabis and CBD are appropriate. So there is a lot to know, and we're going to see this plant as #1 leading personalized lifestyle medicine. Everybody else just has to get on the train with us.
Hey guys, I can honestly talk about the health and physical and mental and spiritual benefits of this plant for hours. I'm not going to do that to you. If you'd like to pull me aside later or contact me, I would be more than happy to educate you on this plant. I'm very passionate. I'm helping people heal themselves, like we've all been talking about. Just for a show of hands, how many people know about the endocannabinoid system? Okay, not bad, because it's a cannabis event, but that's still not that many people. Now, the people that know about the endocannabinoid system, do you know what the endocannabinoid system does? Hands? Show of hands. Cool. 3, 4, 5. Maybe a little more that we're shy. But pretty much your endocannabinoid system is just like your digestive system, just like your circulatory, respiratory, endocrine, all those systems that you really need daily. Your endocannabinoid system modulates and communicates with each of those systems. Okay? So if you're endocannabinoid deficient, the communication between all those systems is going to be lacking, and you're not going to be balanced. Okay? If your endocannabinoid system is very healthy, then you're going to be pretty balanced, you're going to be in homeostasis often, you're going to be healing a little bit quicker, you're going to be healing a little bit better. Okay, so that's the importance of cannabis. The endocannabinoid system is what helps you be in homeostasis and heal successfully. And you know, most importantly, the stress that it regulates, not just mentally, but physically. You know, we're all under crazy amount of stress. We live in the tri-state area, we're always working, we're always hustling, we're always bustling, moving fast. Slow it down, you know. Control your life with your breathing, with your thoughts, with the endocannabinoid system. So definitely the amount of stress it regulates mentally and also physically. Physically, it reduces inflammation. It allows for pain to be regulated and perceive pain differently. So there's many health and physical and even environmental benefits of the plant. So yeah, definitely I would suggest do your research, do your homework, learn about the endocannabinoid system, learn about the receptors in your body, learn how to heal yourself. Okay, do not rely on these doctors. They really don't give a shit. They just want to prescribe stuff to you. You know, they barely look at you sometimes. You talk to them, you're telling them this and this and that, and they're not listening to you. You know, they're just going to overprescribe pharmaceuticals because that's how they make money. No offense to any doctors or pharmacists, but you can heal yourself, absolutely. Our body is made to heal itself. Every single organ, all our systems are made to heal themselves. You don't see animals in the wild going to doctors, right? They medicate with plants. So let your food be your medicine, and your medicine be your food.
So Laura mentioned something about the government's patent. And if you look into it, one of the things that popped to my company, Harvest 360, was that it was a neuroprotectant. And that was super important. And if you guys haven't seen it, the patent number 6630507. And I highly suggest that you arm yourself with that patent number, know it inside and out. When people start to question you, you could always just say, well, the government, the National Institute of Health says this, and usually shuts people quite nicely. So one of the things that we were looking into at Harvest 360 was how to maximize the use of CBD as a neuroprotectant, and we developed a project called the Athena Protocol, which is a project to treat and prevent traumatic brain injury, specifically with military, active duty military, and to the extent where last year, one of the states, Virginia, of all states, they believe highly in CBD, and they created a law and had an application period with 5 licenses that they issued. Over 68 pharmaceutical companies around the country dove into Virginia because it was the first time that a state had ever taken a cannabis protocol and said we're going to put it into the pharmaceutical division of the state and we're going to regulate it as a pharmaceutical medication from end to end. And my company, I wrote 90% of it with that guy right there. He was the project manager, and we won one of those 5 licenses. And it was quite interesting because we were for the first time talking about CBD and not just the cannabis full spectrum. And we had to come up with a lot of reasons why. One, will the market adopt? Is this a marketable product? And 2, how do you regulate cannabis with CBD in it, and when knowing that the levels of THC are going to vary, and we had to go through this whole complicated process. But what I personally learned from it was, just doing the deep dive and research with my team. Very specifically having conversations with Dr. Michel in Israel, discussing the modalities, and sharing the traumatic brain injury reports that they had been studying in Israel for so long, and it is truly, we're protecting. Like this is, for the battlefield, you have an external, you have Kevlar, you have helmets. I'm a veteran, so this is a personal issue for me, and we wanted to say, well, how do we maximize the brain from within? And CBD can do that. And we know that because of 6630507. And so we just kind of shove a crack in their face. But I think that, the biggest takeaway that I think, everyone should take from here, from this panel, is educate yourself on this, on CBD and all of the terpenes, all of the cannabinoids, because individually they'll have their own effect. And now, combined with other cannabinoids and terpenes, they have a different effect. It's called an entourage effect. And Dr. Michel, the godfather of cannabis, was able to prove that theory. And so the study says that.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I want to dive into one question and then we'll jump into audience Q&A. So I figured it'd be fun to get a little controversial up here for a second, because, why not? So I want to hear everyone's thoughts on medicinal versus recreational cannabis use and kind of what that looks like in New Jersey or for your personal lives.
So, I personally, I enjoy cannabis, at all hours of the day and night. And some may call it recreational. I may call it adult use recreational at times, but regardless, for me, it's always medical, period. There's something, occurring inside my body, something is healing, or a stress is being alleviated, whether it's an anxiety or whether it's a backache or a headache or a white ache, we figure it out and the plan works. And, we definitely, my wife's so we definitely want to look at cannabis as an opportunity for health and wellness at all times. It's always medical for me.
Just like David said, we're always medicating when we consume cannabis. Sometimes when people drink a beer or they have a shot, you're medicating. You're trying to medicate your stress, your anxiety, or your issues with your wife or your work or your boyfriend or your dog. But this is a medicine. We've been medicating with this for thousands and thousands of years. So to me, we're medicating, but I would, going back to your question, I would prefer rec. I would prefer it to be recreational. Why? So it could be more accessible to the people that need this medicine. Prices will go down, taxes will go down. You do not need your medical card. You do not need to pay $100 every 3 months to maintain it. Most people can't afford that, or go to the dispensary and afford the high price when they could go to the black market. If you make it rec, it'll be more accessible and it will affect the black market in essence, lowering crime. So I'm all
I definitely want to echo what Dave and Salam said, because what we do know, and the data bear out, that the same exact reasons for a medical recommendation, and remember, it's never a prescription because it's federally illegal, so what we always say is a recommendation from a provider. In New Jersey right now, it's only medical doctors, but in other states, they also have nurse practitioners. So we have the exact same reasons for medical and what I like to call, instead of recreational, I like to call it adult personal use, because a lot of people can't, they still think recreational, it's the guy who's in his mother's basement listening to the Dead and playing video games, and we have to get beyond that stereotype, because actually what it is, it's people who own successful businesses, and it's all these people here. It's doctors, lawyers, teachers. I cannot tell you how many people I know who are extremely successful who are microdosers, meaning that they consume cannabis all throughout the day. And we know that people who are using it medically and people who are using it for rec or adult personal use are using it for the same 3 reasons. Mood disorders, of which anxiety comes under there, depression, bipolar, even schizophrenia, for pain, and also for insomnia. So it's exactly the same reasons. So it's really interesting, and I think that we will see that cannabis is going to actually replace a lot of the things that people are using now, especially when they start integrating with lifestyle, with nutrition, with yoga, with meditation, and with breath work. And we're going to see people going back to that. And as Salam pointed out so eloquently, allowing your body to heal itself.
It's a tough question. I used to consume a lot of cannabis. I still do, but I used to too. But I used to consume recreationally. I don't consume recreationally anymore because I got educated and I realized that, for me it's not recreation. And don't use that term. I would encourage you to, that's not the lingo that industry folk want to hear. Adult use sounds better. I like inspirational use. I like intentional use. I don't like recreational, although sometimes I will, to contradict myself for a second, I don't think there's anything wrong with the guy who's, or girl who are getting stoned and then playing video games for fun. In my opinion, it's your human right, your God-given right to change your consciousness or to ingest a plant if you so choose to. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, then God bless you, go and ingest. So I would say, just be intentional, because the truth is this is a very powerful plant and it's not harmless. And, so be realistic with yourself of why you're consuming. If you're medicating some kind of, mood disorder or some mental health issue, then get some help on that mental health issue. See a mental health professional. Don't just medicate with cannabis. If you have pain, don't just medicate with cannabis. Do it, in a somewhat scientific, intelligent way at the very least. And if you're, consuming for fun, nothing wrong with that, but please say it.
However, I've seen this meme that said, mommy having a joint should be the equivalent or just as accepted as mommy needs a glass of wine. And when I see that, I was like, I love this so much that I reposted it. And the reason why I reposted it is because that's just one example of many examples of how, people self-medicate, right? They self-medicate because it helps them unwind, it helps them feel better, it helps them, get rid of stress, it helps alleviate stress. However, there's a lot of people that cope with conditions that are self-medicated with cannabis that don't have an eligible condition. Right, so with recreational law, it opens up the gateway, right, for a lot of people to be able to use this effectively to heal themselves, right? But with that, at the same time, there are a lot of professionals in this room and budding entrepreneurs that could be instrumental in creating the change that's necessary so we don't have to perpetuate the stigma, right? Because what we want to do, one of my intentions is, and what a lot of my colleagues and peers on the stage intentions are, is to be able to really create a positive, right? A positive space, positive energy, right, around cannabis, because cannabis has been so negatively stigmatized from our life, from our parents' whole life, right? Since we go back to our grandparents. However, even in my culture, they've been using it, right? So I come from an Indian lineage. So in India, they've been using it to heal for thousands of years. Cannabis is something that, ritualistically is a part of their traditions, right? It's part of their culture, it's part of everyday life. And it's like that in a lot of parts of the world where they identify and use cannabis, as one of their, primary forms of medicine in their culture. With that being said, I am for recreational law. I do feel as though recreational law will do so many great things for our community, but at the same time, there's also a lot of concerns with that, right? So there's always going to be concerns. What we want to do is be able to help people and create laws, right, and support people so that they could use it and incorporate it into their lifestyles, without experiencing any of the negative consequences or effects that could possibly happen when they're way too stoned, right? Because that can happen.
So unfortunately, I'm not going to disagree with anything. Sorry guys. Listen, in my personal opinion, again, I said this in my first comments, we're talking about a plant that has many healing benefits, allowing yourself to heal. I think everybody is similar to going out to this event and drinking alcohol. They should have the right to heal yourself. But I think just to kind of end this before we open up the Q&A, I can't stress enough educating yourself. Quick little story, I spoke with a former colleague of mine who bought one of our products, and I said, "Oh, have you used it yet?" And she was like, "Oh no, I was on a family trip, and my sister said she didn't want that stuff around her kids." And I said, "What do you mean, you don't want what stuff?" She's like, "Oh, that cannabis." And I said, "Why don't you have your sister call me and I can educate her on exactly what it was." Long story short, I educated her on what hemp was and cannabis, and the benefits of it, and lo and behold, she had a variety of different issues with anxiety and sleep. I sent her a bottle to use, and she used it, and now she's a believer. And it was all after one conversation and a couple of Google searches, right? So I'm not saying everything on the internet is correct, because it's definitely not, but make sure you're educating yourself, especially even when you're buying product. Understand what's on the label, understand where it's sourced, understand how it's cultivated, extracted. Just please educate yourself, network, and ask for help.
Thank you so much. And thanks to the whole panel. Give a huge round of applause. I'd like to open it up for questions. So I'm a licensed psychologist at Tech University Medical Center. So what I do is I work with depressed or anxious people with a team of neurologists who primarily see people who have multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, concussion, any sort of neurological issue. And I totally agree with the effects that it has on depression and anxiety and inflammation. But one of the things that the physicians and neurologists don't agree with is the long-term cognitive issues that it can cause. Right? So executive functioning, memory, planning, the ability to organize. What is there out there that can sort of help my argument when I'm working with a neurologist who's like, well, I don't know how this is going to affect someone's memory or cognitive functioning 10 years from now.
So mostly what we see about cannabis, and part of the reason why it works in PTSD for certain people, is that it helps to extinguish certain memories. So it does work in that way. As far as things like executive functioning and consolidation of memory, there's actually some data out there showing that it actually helps. And I'd be happy to share that with you. I just came back from presenting at the longest running clinical conference on medical marijuana in Tampa. It's an organization that I would encourage all of you to look into, called very cleverly Patients Out of Time, POT. And that's what I presented on a topic called cannabis, nutrition, and microbiome. And what we know is that, what happens in the gut is not like Vegas. It doesn't stay in the gut, it goes to the brain. And there is where you can really help to teach your colleagues about how cannabis really works and how it works in mental health. So it can actually be a positive in that area. And I think what happens to healthcare professionals is that a lot of us don't believe things if we didn't learn it in school. So that becomes very challenging. And of course, the endocannabinoid system, nobody even knows what it is. So it's not being taught in schools. Hopefully that's going to change. So it's always a matter of education.
I definitely agree with her when I was like education. I constantly find myself educating a lot of other therapists, educating a lot of other healthcare professionals in my field, just because they also have a lot of the same concerns that, this gentleman expressed. And that's why I believe that, medical marijuana or cannabis use happens in conjunction with counseling. That's one of the reasons why I started a counseling program to help people, learn and understand the side effects, the long-term effects, the immediate effects. Because we have to weigh pros and cons. Just like with a lot of other forms of treatment and medication that as healthcare professionals we've been trained on, a lot of that has very detrimental effects on the long term as well. Right? But we don't question those things. We don't question when our physicians prescribe us a pharmaceutical medication, right? That could ultimately give us ulcers years from now. We don't question these things. Right, so there's a lot of things that we don't question when, we follow, right? We follow the norm, we follow what we know, which is the current medical system. However, for someone to make their own choice, right, to use cannabis, I think that starts with the educational component, where we really sit down and we look at the pros and the cons. We have an 8-week curriculum that we teach our clients because it's important for them as they're really identifying with the substance and the effects of what's happening to them, and we're adjusting and we're, addressing what's going on to them early on their use. At the same time, we're educating them so they understand that, there are side effects to this, right? Just as there's side effects to a lot of treatment that's available out there. My answer to that is, what I would tell that neurologist is that, there are a lot of side effects with some of the other treatment, protocols that you guys might have in the hospital. What are the 10-year effects of those treatments? Right, because there's always going to be questions. I think that when we're dealing with cannabis, we always have to ask ourselves 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, question ourselves and question the substance, just because we know that, there's such a dark space, there's so much misunderstanding, there's so much that we don't know, right? But what we do know is that it does help people and that it's a natural substance, and in many ways, just like she's expressed, there are conditions where this is one of the most potent natural substances that you can actually take to heal your body. So, there's always going to be the what ifs, there's always going to be, is this the best thing for me? I think that as an educated consumer, these are always things, and as an educated professional, these are always things that we always need to question. And we shouldn't stop questioning, but we also shouldn't stop learning.
Awesome. Really quick, you could always show your peers, your colleagues, a video of Elon Musk smoking some weed with Joe. They say that jokingly, but honestly, when we talk about executive function and cognitive function, we have leaders all over the place that are doing great things around the world that are consuming cannabis every single day. Now, I might not be to that level, but last week I wrote 13 applications completely stoned the whole time, and I generally, I say stuff, but it's kind of hard for me to sit and in one space and tiny for like 12 hours. So it works for me, and my colleagues now, when they know it's writing season, because there's an application that has to be done, they bring me over, quarter ounces, just to make sure that I'm ready to be going. And I would certainly look to real case scenarios to point out to have those discussions, because there are presidents, right, that admitted to smoking cannabis during their college years, and they made it through in this country.
Awesome. We can take out one or two more questions.
So, quick question. I speak to a lot of folks who are in the armed forces or the police, police academy, who had cannabis once in the past and do like it or are scared to try it again. So if they consume CBD, was that something else should open a drug test?
So I would be a very conscious consumer, right? I deal with a veterans treatment court in Colorado, and I specifically advise them on this matter. They're not allowed to consume cannabis, and they do drug tests twice a week with the various veterans that go into that treatment court. And we essentially have to identify, good manufacturers and producers that are using isolates, and so we'll call this, the difference between full spectrum and a sort of spectrum without THC. So I would certainly, there are companies out there that are doing that. I can name a few. Elixinol will have a THC-free line, to name one. Others will say that it's completely THC-free, and they probably don't know. So I would look on the label and see that first it had a third party test done on that batch, and that there is no THC on it. And I always want to look at the source of the CBD. Sometimes there's a lot of CBD products coming in from areas around the world that are dangerous. They're flooding their fields with toxic waters and growing these plants. And so I would recommend you look for locally grown hemp products. Europe has a really good hemp program. They have pretty high standards, and ensure that there's third-party testing done on it, and ensure that there's zero THC in it. And then even at that, unless you're in the lab watching and know what you're looking at, there's really no way to know. So I generally caution people to approach these matters very seriously, because what's said is not necessarily accurate all the time. So, but there is product out there for that. You just have to be very careful finding it.
If I could just answer that quickly. The difference is that most of the CBD companies and most of what people recommend is what we call full spectrum. So when you look at a CBD product, it generally will say hemp oil, and this has a lot to do with the FDA and labeling. But full spectrum meaning that it contains all of the cannabinoids. And when we're looking at hemp, that is, according to the Farm Bill, lower than 0.3% THC. But anybody who paid attention in math knows that if you're talking about a percentage, that means that depending on the amount you're taking, the THC is going to be higher. So you will sometimes get an effect. And determining if it's going to show up in your blood is an area of study called pharmacokinetics, and it's actually different for every person, because we all have what's called a detoxification or a cytochrome P450 system that actually detoxifies anything we put in our body differently. So for some people it may show up, and in other people it may not. So it's very, very different for different people. I have many people in my practice who are elite athletes, and they will lose their funding. They will get kicked out of school. So I would never recommend a full full spectrum CBD product for these people, because it's the same reason with law enforcement, you really do have to be very careful. So that is a matter, as you know, as Dave pointed out, of looking for a product that says THC free. It does not say full spectrum on the label. But for everybody else, I actually don't want them to have isolate.
All right, we can take one last one. Chris. My dude wrapping up the night.
So I have one question, and it might be a little bit controversial. There's been a little bit of controversy with a lot of the jewel pods, and for a lot of the minors that are getting addicted to it and allowed to go into these deli stores and be able to consume these nicotines. Now, there's also another metric on cognitive thought process and eye coordination, and amongst a lot of other variables in use, being able to absorb cannabis with THC. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that the risk reward is beneficial on a recreational basis?
Are you specifically talking about the delivery agents that are being utilized?
Correct. So like the deli, they would obtain a license, and they're not making enough sales, so they'll sell it to a team.
Right. So it's an interesting point. There's a lot of debate, a lot of controversy around that. Propylene glycol. It was initially approved by the FDA as a digestive treatment, maybe over a decade ago, very relatively new, and never has it been approved for inhalation. This is a byproduct of oil, and so I don't know that anybody knows what the long-term effects are. I think we're gonna recognize that maybe 10, 20 years from now when those effects start to pop up in later ages as people continue to consume. Myself, my preference, I don't know about you guys, but I don't participate in that use. If it says PG, if I'm smoking, if they're saying blatantly that they're gonna put something that's like oil in my body, I'm not gonna use it. And also, I have, to go even beyond that, you have a lot of companies now that are pulling terpenes in mass numbers and using those as a delivery agent. Terpenes are a naturally derived product from the plant itself, but we've never consumed in concentrate all that fat and put it into our lungs. And at the end of the day, it's a lipid. And so I don't even think we know what the long-term effects of that's going to be. Although it's very flavorful, and I enjoy it. But I tend to stay away from, me personally, I tend to stay away from concentrates that are being mixed in with other things. I'm sort of a purist in that way. I love rosin, so pressure, heat, get the nectar of the god, and just smoke that.
Yeah, that's a very important question actually, because I feel like there's way too many harmful CBD products out there at 7-Eleven and gas stations, and you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what country they're coming from. You don't know if there's metals in there, toxins in there, or whatnot. And I tell people, I'm a trainer, I'm big on nutrition facts. Look at what's in there, and even if you see what's in there, they could still be lying. A lot of times you pay what you get for it. So if you pay like $5 for some CBD or $10 for a bottle of CBD, it's probably not good for you. Or not really CBD. Exactly. There's a huge study on Amazon. I think they picked a bunch of CBD products to test, and like 98% of them, they didn't have CBD and weren't CBD, and it was just snake oil. So you pay what you get for it, and don't buy cheap medicine, okay? Be very careful and be very conscious of what you're putting into your body. Like David said, a lot of these oils are made to be ingested, not to be combusted, okay? And if you combust it, it's extremely carcinogenous and could create a lot of harmful effects to your body. So just be conscious, be very conscious, and just know what you're consuming.
I'll just add to that, not just the propylene glycol. We know that actually coats the lungs in a very negative way, but in addition, the vape cartridges often contain metal, and the last thing we want is heavy metal poisoning. And one of the things that is really important to know about the cannabis plant, well, we have cannabis, and from cannabis we have hemp, and what we call marijuana, which is above 0.3% THC, and typically way above that for marijuana products. But what we know is that the plant itself is a bioremediator, which means, and you can ask my sister here who's an environmental engineer about that, it cleans up everything in the ground. So imagine now that, you're planting your crop in a soil that isn't clean. Cannabis hemp was actually used to clean up Chernobyl, and I wondered, what did they do with those plants? Where did that go, Mike?
Well, I left to America. I was born in Ukraine, and after that happened, I was like, we out. You guys got me scared to consume cannabis. Is anyone else scared? Just a quick show of hands. I mean, I think those fears are valid. I don't consume concentrates, or only very rarely if I know exactly where they're coming from and I trust the source and I'm able to have some kind of due diligence to let me know, or to make me feel like, because you really don't know unless you were there and saw everything happen, like to make me feel like it's safe. Otherwise, I don't want to ingest that because, for me personally, it's a bad risk reward. Now, I think that's going to be a little different for every human. I think cannabis, by and large, is a much better risk reward than opiates, depending on your level of pain and, severity and access and, a whole slew of variables. But, I think as you've heard now from all these folks that, try to be educated about what you're putting into your body, and I would just say that doesn't just, apply to cannabis. Ask your grocery store, ask the restaurants you're eating at, ask them where they get their produce and how that's grown and what chemicals have been thrown onto that, because, I don't know if the risk reward there is so great for the average consumer. So I would just say be diligent about your own health, because if you don't take care of it, nobody else will.
I feel like with any product like jewels or vapes or concentrates in general, I agree with everything that everybody said on this panel. We don't necessarily know how these products are being produced, and that's always the scary part. And we also don't know what type of oils are being cut with. We don't know if the manufacturers are actually being totally truthful. So with that being said, at least on the legal market, right, for MJ patients, they have a place where they can go and they know that, the strains are grown there, so they can become familiar with the growers. In New Jersey, you can actually do that if you're an MJ patient. Most likely they'll let you go into the dispensary if you want to. You could probably ask to, talk to the grower. However, with a lot of these other products, like the jewel pods, the THC jewel pods that are on the black market, we don't know. We don't know who's creating them. We don't know if they're actually jewel products. A lot of them are bootlegs. They're not real jewel pods. So that's my biggest concern, is that knowing that the products that we're using, are the products that we think we're using. For a lot of clients that, double dabble with the black market and, have their own vendors that they get products from, I always say the same thing. So once again, they don't know where their product is coming from. So the best bet that everyone has in the MJ program at least is going to the dispensary, because at least you can ask them, you can go see their grow. I've had physician tours at every single grow in the state of New Jersey, and I can say that they're all ran differently. They're all located. It's really based on the grower, right?
So I got really nothing left to say. I think the bottom line here is that we all learned today that you need to be informed, you need to educate yourself, and make sure you understand what you're putting into your body. And I would suggest don't let it stop here. There's obviously a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise on this panel. Continue to read, continue to learn. This industry is evolving and changing. Almost it feels like on a daily basis. So tomorrow's news could be, or yesterday's news could be old. So continue to educate yourself, continue to create advocacy for the industry, and let's all keep pushing in the same direction.
You guys are awesome. Everyone give it up for the panel. It was great. It was amazing. And thank you everybody who came out. Congratulations, vendors, everybody. This has been an awesome night. I appreciate you all, and it wouldn't be possible without you. So, everyone, I respect everyone. Please get out of here quickly, but